saw a technology that was consumer focused when it came out. We sat there and we needed to figure out how do we bring in this industrial domain knowledge we want to make them able to use, for instance, time series and speak about the sensor values that we're collecting on shop floors. We don't just want them to be able to write a beautiful essay. At the same time, we need to build guardrails so that we don't really fall into these traps of hallucination or unreliability of AI systems. We had access to the state-of-the-art generative AI models as Siemens employees only 3 months later at a corporate enterprise level. That was, I think, an insane achievement by our organization.
Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Humpton, CEO of Siemens USA, and welcome back to the Optimistic Outlook. We focus a lot on this podcast on the technological transformation happening across American industry and infrastructure, what we've been calling the new industrial tech sector. For today's episode, though, I want to zoom in on the career opportunities unfolding as this new industrial tech sector continues to grow. After all, technology is only as powerful as the people behind it. What are the skills? What are the mindsets and key character traits that enable us to move world-changing technologies forward and to succeed in our lives and careers? In this episode, we're going to think about the emergence of generative AI and copilots in our lives and work environments. And we're going to uncover a space that isn't getting as much attention. Not IT, not just the digital spaces that we interact with, but the physical world, where the real and digital worlds come together. With me today is Olympia Brikis, the Director of AI Research at Siemens. She leads a global team working at the cutting edge of AI innovation in industrial sectors. Let's get into the conversation. Olympia, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Barbara, so much for having me. I'm excited for our conversation today.
Well, let's jump right in. You've been involved in the breakthroughs in AI. I really want to get your perspectives from before ChatGPT, after ChatGPT, before GenAI, after GenAI. Talk to us a little bit about your focus before the large language model breakthrough. And how has the introduction of those new technologies changed the way you think about the application of technology in our sectors?
Yeah, it's quite an interesting shift that we have gone through in the past 2 years. So, of the introduction of ChatGPT in November 2022, what really changed was that we went from thinking about AI as something that we can apply to specific, very narrow tasks that we have to predefine, to something that works in a very open scope, where it's much more about the user who's using it, defining what tasks they want to focus on, rather than the engineer and the developer that is creating the AI system. So that brought, of course, a lot of opportunity to rethink the sectors and the use cases that we're applying AI to. But it also changed the landscape in that now the end users of AI, us ourselves as we think about our own productivity, but also our customers as we think about industrial setting as Siemens, they are a much more bigger player in being creative and seeing what they can apply AI to. And that was a tremendous shift, a tremendous opportunity that we have kind of been going through in these past 2 years, seeing where does it make most sense to exploit that and use these new capabilities that large language model, so-called foundational models, are bringing with them.
We'll come back to that question of what has actually changed in the operational environment thanks to large language models. But I actually want to just spend a couple more minutes on this whole ChatGPT moment. I mean, you and your team had been working in deep research, and it often had a very long arc to it. And yet here, in that breakthrough that happened, in a matter of months, the world looked different. That it seems like it just changed the whole pace. Bring us inside the moment and how your team responded.
Yeah, it was indeed, Barbara, just like you're saying, a crazy moment. We had been working on it for many, many years. Some people were hypothesizing that we're going into an AI winter that was right in front of us. And then came this huge leap. I think many people knew was going to happen at some point, but I don't think very few people knew it was going to happen in that quick time frame. We immediately got together and thought to ourselves, okay, what does this mean? What does this mean for our research? But what does this also mean for the company as a whole, in terms of how will this technology be used inside products for our own productivity? And so when we realized how much we had to essentially answer in that moment, we created a task force at Siemens very quickly to address the internal use of generative AI as well as the use inside our products. I'm very proud whenever I tell this story because we had access to the state-of-the-art generative AI models as Siemens employees only 3 months later at a corporate enterprise level. That was, I think, an insane achievement by our organization that made us be able to explore this technology in such depth for our own productivity again, as employees in the company in various functions, but also as product teams who are thinking now, what does this mean for our customers and how are we going to change our products as a result of this technology?
This is where Siemens is different. We know that there was early adoption by lots of organizations who were able to share their data widely with others, sort of jump on that moving train with the readily available public information. And yet here we are working in a field where protection of information is key. You and your team have been focused on industrial AI, and I'd love to hear about your recent projects, how we're different and how we're shaping the future of industrial work.
So we saw a technology that was consumer focused when it came out. So like you were just saying, it was not ready right away to be used in an industrial context. The security mechanisms were not there, but even just the modalities and the things that you were able to talk to a generative AI about were not necessarily the ones that our shop floor workers or a operator in a power plant wants to talk to an AI about. So we sat there and we needed to figure out how do we bring in this industrial domain knowledge, how do we bring in the modalities that we need in industry to these generative AI models. And one of the most exciting projects, I think, is our industrial copilot for operations, where we're trying to see how do we augment generative AI the way it's out there today, how do we augment large language models to fit industrial context. And that means, on the one hand, making them more powerful in terms of the modalities that they can use. We want to make them able to use, for instance, time series and speak about the sensor values that we're collecting on shop floors. We don't just want them to be able to write a beautiful essay. At the same time, we need to build guardrails and we need to use all of our existing technology, all of our existing ways of solving problems, and to guardrail the systems and to check on them so that we don't really fall into these traps of hallucination or unreliability of AI systems. So we are kind of bringing those two worlds together of how things were solved in the past and how generative AI is augmenting this and creating a system that is reliable for industrial use.
This is really interesting because the theme that we used at CES this year is AI for real. I want to get people excited about how the work that we do is going to be changing. We recognize that GenAI has given us this ability to do translation of language so that someone can actually use real natural language and have that language be translated into, say, the programming within that world of robots, automation in a factory environment, the world of buildings and the systems that are used to manage those buildings. There's a tremendous opportunity ahead of us. What excites you about working in operational technology transformation at this intersection of AI and industry?
So I think the past couple of years, the pandemic, everything that came after it has shown us how incredibly difficult it is to be flexible in operational environments, right? They're highly complex environments that we set up in the best way we can think about. And then whenever we need to respond to change, whenever we need to respond to an unplanned event, it's kind of difficult to do this. And many of our customers struggle with the fact that they have experienced operators, but then more junior members of the staff, they need to have years of experience to kind of get to that level of understanding how to adapt and how to react. And I think here is a great opportunity for AI to come in, and for generative AI in particular to come in and to synthesize all of this knowledge that we have about our operational system, what's going on live today, right now, and combine this with all of the planning and engineering documents that we have. And of course, a human can do this, but it would take them hours, if not days, to sit through all these and read through all of these documents. And they might still not find the right things to connect because there's just such a vast amount of information to get through. And so AI is great at pointing us to the right places, at doing some of that pre-analysis for us, and then allowing us to see, okay, these are the options that we have. This is where we should be looking. This is where most likely something is going wrong. And we can respond in a much more efficient way than we have been able to respond to in the past.
You've got me thinking of the old story of the expert who walks into the factory and factory's having a problem. And the key question is, hey, we've got this huge gear that needs to be adjusted. We have no idea what to do with it. And the expert walks up and he puts an X on the gear and says, adjust it here. That'll be $100,000. And the response is, wait. $100,000 just for you to go put an X on there? No. $100,000 because I know where to put the X. I mean, we have built workforces where there's a premium on that expertise, that feel for the equipment. And I'm curious about whether you think that our ability now to use data is going to give more people that superpower to be able to decode and understand the things that need to be adjusted in a manufacturing environment.
Well, I think it will certainly make the process of learning it much more exciting and much more open to people who have maybe not been in that environment for such a long time. At the same time, I think it will open the opportunity for people with other skills to come in, skills to use and interpret this type of data. I think this is going to be more and more important as we kind of move through this transition to data-driven decision-making in all functions.
What are the implications then, Olympia, to the kind of skills people need to be focused on? What are the tools that you think are emerging now that are going to be most influential to the job? And then what does that say to what people need to be prepared to do?
I would always recommend everybody to start playing around with generative AI, be it for your own productivity, just to get to know what it can do, where its limitations are, and to get a feel for it, to not be afraid of what it can do. At the same time, a lot of people will need to also reevaluate what their contribution is at the end of the day, because as generative AI is taking on a lot of the boring work that we don't really love doing, like reading through tons of manuals to figure out what's going wrong. And our added value as humans will be the judgment that has to come on top of that analysis. The education of people shifting towards becoming better at making those decisions will move on to higher tier tasks, like the decisions that need to be made on top of that. And that's why I would recommend everyone to get familiar with this in your domain. And the domains are going to be different for everybody, right? Whether you're working in medicine, whether you're working as an engineer, whether you're working on a shop floor or even in a warehouse, there's going to be opportunities in all of these sectors for generative AI to come in, and it's already coming in. Being familiar with it, being open to using it and seeing how it can augment your own productivity is the best way to get started.
Yeah, and I've got this general notion that we're at the beginning of this process, that there's plenty of runway ahead. A lot of people are asking these days, hey, what pathways should I choose? Because I don't want to be irrelevant in a short amount of time. My sense, and I wonder if you agree with me, is that, we're looking now at years, if not decades, of adaptation in the industrial world as these technologies are adopted.
Oh, 100%, Barbara. I recently read the statistic that less than 1% of the worldwide population has been using generative AI so far. So sometimes I just pull myself back and I think, oh, we live in a bubble, right? We live in this privileged bubble of people who are already trying it, who are already trying to figure out what they can apply it to, that have access to it. But there is so much more that we can get with the technology. I think as people think about career paths maybe into AI, but also into roles that are going to be leveraging AI, I think there's always two ways. There's, of course, the way of coming in as a classical computer scientist, wanting to develop the technology farther, which has been the way of the past to get into this technology. But I think more and more it will be important for people coming in with domain knowledge, with expertise in a certain field, be it engineering, be it sciences or creative industries, coming in with that expertise and understanding how the technology can be leveraged there. I think we'll need much, much more of that as well. and not just the classical computer scientists. They're not going to be the ones that are going to be building all of these applications of generative AI in the real world. These are always going to be roles where we have hybrid teams coming together. And we see that at Siemens, right, as well, where our teams are mixes of engineers, both mechanical engineering training, electrical engineering training, and computer scientists that were really deep in building the neural networks and building AI systems. And we bring them together to develop those industrial applications.
Just out of curiosity, Olympia, what about your own path? How did you get to this position?
I'm a computer scientist by training. Actually started out in math, and then I thought math was a little bit too theoretical for me. I needed a bit more of an application, so I pivoted into computer science in my grad school days. And I naturally somewhere landed in this intersection of both fields. And then I started with an internship at Siemens in our research department. And that internship really brought me into the industrial world of AI. And I saw how much we could do there. I could do there as somebody having been trained in computer science, a field that was new to the industrial world. We didn't have so many people focused on software, on AI at the time coming into the company. So there was so much potential to apply this knowledge and see how it really can transform what seemed at the time to be a very analog, very old school type of industry. I ended up accepting a full-time job opportunity after that internship with Siemens, and have now transitioned to leading one of our research teams here in the United States. And really this eagerness to transform the industry that we're in, knowing what we know about how this industrial world works, really continues to follow me and be with me every day.
Lots of opportunity ahead. In fact, I'd love to hear your advice to our listeners about how they can get engaged as they themselves are working on their own lifelong learning, how these new industrial tech jobs can continue to grow and thrive. Any advice you'd give us?
First of all, be prepared to always learn. I think one of the things as somebody being in AI that I learned is the field was transforming so fast from year to year. We thought it would slow down. It hasn't slowed down yet. And so one of the things I learned is you have to be willing and you have to be eager to keep learning and not be scared of new things. And I think the same applies here. We're seeing the industrial world go more towards a software-driven world. We're seeing these AI technologies be applied there. But we're also seeing, of course, everything else that was there before still matter tremendously. So keep your knowledge that you have dear to your heart. Don't think it's invaluable just because these new technologies are coming around, but be eager to also understand how they come in and how you can try to leverage them. And there's great courses on the internet that are freely available to everyone. I think especially fellow AI researchers of the early years like Andrew Ng have done a great job at putting knowledge together in form of free courses on Coursera, for instance.
If you were going to challenge our audience, if you were to say, hey, there's some things we're working on at Siemens that are particularly tough, and we'd love to challenge people to bring forward ideas, what are some of those sticky problems that you need some help with?
In industry, we're dealing with problems that live in the physical world. And this physical world has physical constraints. There's physical laws governing things, and they are just not going to change. Now, we have not yet, we're on the path to figuring out how can we incorporate all of this knowledge that we have about the physical world into these AI systems to make them really natively know this stuff. And not just maybe have read it or maybe pull out the information, but really, how can we reliably make sure that it knows these type of things. So on the other side, I think what we also face is this question, how do we make this all economically and environmentally make sense in a shop floor environment? So we're talking here about technology that consumes tremendous amounts of energy to be developed. So how do we do this in a sustainable way where we can also enable smaller industrial facilities that cannot build up a huge data center in their facility to leverage this technology? How can we allow them to use it as well? Those are challenges around making models more memory efficient, more energy efficient, smaller in nature. Those are also key questions that we keep having as we want to bring this really to the broader industrial audience.
Well, at CES, I saw fantastic new technologies where people are bringing more compute power to the edge. I think that's going to be a wonderful trend. And particularly as we continue to work with our customers on problems where, yep, you got to make real-time decisions with plenty of data at the edge, but you want to be able to then work behind the scenes to use data that's available in the cloud to optimize algorithms, make improvements, and then load that back out to the edge. I think it's a really cool moment to be thinking about the application of these technologies in these very different environments, that real time, real world, as opposed to the offline and the gaming world that we've often talked about. So more work to be done, and we look forward to interaction with the audience on these topics. As we close our discussion today, Olympia, I love to ask my guests for their views of the future. And first, let me focus in on your view of how this technology is going to empower people. How are people going to be able to use these tools, and how is this going to change the future of industrial careers?
I'm very optimistic about this technology. I think it will allow us to focus on what truly matters in our work and not the tedious bits that we need to take care of to get to a result. So I think it will elevate industrial jobs to be focused on making decisions, adapting in real time to things, and just becoming more efficient and environmentally, economically, and efficient in many other ways in their own production. So I think it will elevate our jobs, and everyone should see that as an opportunity for their own career, for their own work.
How do you think this might actually help multiple generations in the workforce interact with one another?
What we see our customers dealing with a lot is that they have employees that have worked with them for a very long time, that know their systems, but that are moving out of the workforce due to retirement. And so where we see a lot of these technologies being able to assist the younger workers that are coming in to fill those roles is that they will capture the knowledge from our senior staff as they interact with the AI systems, and the AI system listens to these interactions and sees how they're finding solution to problems. The system is able to learn from that and give that knowledge then to the younger or less experienced user.
It's funny. I can almost imagine, think about when we play games, often we get that feedback that says, how are we performing compared to some of the best at the game? And wouldn't it be cool to be able to give people that kind of feedback in the work environment? That's exciting for those of us who can contemplate a role using the technology. But here you are, you're working with people who are actually shaping these tools and the jobs of the future. Give me your view of what's coming at us in the future. How will the work you all do as creators and inventors affect our world?
Our day-to-day is also being reshaped by this technology that we built ourselves. So we are starting to use it as well. We're starting to see applications of generative AI in scientific discovery that are really revolutionizing the way we can work through hypotheses as scientists and as developers. We're really seeing our own field be transformed just as much as the fields that we're working with as Siemens. And I think this openness to the transformation and really reflecting a lot on what is your core contribution going to be going forward as an individual is kind of key to stepping into this transformation in a positive and empowered way.
That's exciting. We are so thrilled that you're here. Thank you for your leadership with the team working on these technologies. And I think I'm going to be calling you back in this fast-moving field. I think our audience is going to want some updates about how things are going. So thanks for spending time with us today.
Thank you, Barbara. I would be happy to come back and share more.
A huge thank you to Olympia Brikis for sharing her expertise and giving us a glimpse into the groundbreaking work happening in the new industrial tech sector. If today's conversation inspired you, be sure to check out the more than 60 episodes we've aired since launching the podcast in 2020. And make sure you head now to the show notes for additional learning materials. We've asked Olympia to give us a few more pointers and maybe some links to resources that can help all of us get smarter on industrial AI. Now, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share this episode with anyone you think might be curious about the power of AI and its role in shaping American industry. Thanks for listening, and tune in again soon.
Please follow us on social media and on your favorite podcasting platform. Thank you for tuning in.